Coming up next weekend, a week from tonight, as a matter of fact, folks have a rare opportunity to see something on the stage that I think is really interesting. I heard about this a couple of weeks ago, and it stars two eminent members of the artistic community here in our area. That is Paul Causman, who is the actor. You may know him from the Toledo Rep, and has been performing the role of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol for the past several years. And we're also joined by him, as well as the composer Burton Beerman. Now, the two of them have collaborated on something called An Iliad, which, of course, we all know is the work of Homer, but this is a modern retelling of the tale. I want to welcome both of you gentlemen to FM 91.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't want to get into too much of a history lesson here, but I'm wondering, Paul, if you could give us a little primer on the Iliad for people who perhaps don't remember their high school history.
Right. Homer wrote an epic poem, war poem, about almost 3,000 years ago called the Iliad, and it was about the Trojan War. An Iliad, which is what we are performing coming up in about a week, is a modern retelling. It's a modern perspective on the Iliad. And in fact, it uses actual passages from the original poem, epic poem, but a lot of it is narrative. A lot of it is in contemporary, kind of casual language. Mm-hmm. And it makes it easier to understand that way, I think, for contemporary audiences. A lot of us have memories of the Iliad in high school, and they may not be positive memories of it, but it's actually, as the story says, as the play says, it's actually a very good story, and it is. And I think this retelling of it kind of helps do that. It helps bridge the couple 3 millennia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a story that it's a bit of a cliche, but it has stood the test of time, as it were.
It has indeed.
And this is An Iliad as opposed to the Iliad. So this is a modern take on the Iliad. It's a one-man show, right?
Yes, it is.
But there are other elements.
There are indeed. There is a muse in this show who is Burton Beerman, who is the composer and the musician for the production. And he's written all of the music. It's all original music for this particular production. And the ancient Greeks saw muses as inspiration for creativity. They saw inspiration for their poets and their artists and whatnot, their dramatists. And so is the muse here in this particular performance of An Iliad.
Well, I want our muse, who is sitting here, to speak to that a little bit, because, Burton, you know, as a composer, you usually look elsewhere for a muse for you. But in this case, you're sort of the poet's muse. I mean, how does it feel for you to be playing that role?
I don't know. I'm a musician on stage, but that's the easy part. The hard part is he asked me to act once in a while. It's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah. You have brought this very interesting instrument along with you. Yes. And I wonder if you could tell us what it is and describe it to us. It's a type of flute.
This is a wooden flute, and it was made by a Native American, but we're not using it in a way a Native American would use it. We wanted music that didn't sound contemporary, but we didn't really want to try and recreate what an ancient Greek sound would be. Yeah. We just wanted to give that magic so that we were transported back to some time. And this double flute has one side of it is a drone, and the other side is this wooden flute, and you play all of them from the top.
Well, it's just to describe it for people who can't see it, it kind of looks like, you know, two flutes that are conjoined just at the very end, the part that you blow into.
Yes.
And it's made out of wood, and it's, a couple of feet long, actually?
Yeah, I guess. I never measured it.
Yeah. Maybe you want to play a little bit
for
us?
Sure, I
so
would
we can
love
hear it?
to.
Yeah.
This is some of the music from production.
That's really interesting, the sound that it has. It reminds me, I mean, it sounds old, right, the music, even though it's obviously not old since you wrote it, but inspired by music of the past. But the instrument itself is so idiomatic. It has that kind of falling off sound at the end,
Yes.
that gives it that quality.
And it doesn't have to, but I'm doing that, and it can do that.
Yeah, interesting. I want to hear some of the music from the play, and maybe you can choose one of the pieces that you brought with us and just introduce it.
Okay. The music that all of the music is recorded other than what I'm playing, and
Right.
I'm using 3 different flutes to play live. And some of the flutes, I recorded the music, and they are digitally recorded, and I play live with them.
Oh, okay.
So you have a quartet of different flutes, and I use 3 flutes. One I call a bird flute because it's got a little bird at the end of it carved into it. Another one of the flutes was designed for me where it's a wooden flute, and it was designed by a Native American but using a Turkish scale. So it has that semitone at the bottom.
Okay.
And then this drone flute. So the music that you hear is particularly, it has percussion and it has flutes. And I think when we first started, we were going to have all kinds of live percussion and maybe a couple of symphony orchestras behind us. And,
The Broadway version.
yeah, the Broadway.
Yeah.
Or the off-Broadway version, either or.
Very off.
Yeah.
And we have drums, and then we have the flutes. And those are our 2 main sources. But most of it are digital files, which are cued in performance, and then I play live with them.
Well, let's hear a little sample right now, one of those digital files that you brought along with you, just so, to kind of get people in the mood for what they're going to experience multimedia-wise. This is music by Burton Beerman. You're performing the flutes on this, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I should mention that the show opens next Friday, a week from tonight. That's April 7th at 8 o'clock p.m., also Saturday, April 8th at 8 o'clock p.m., and then on Sunday, April 9th, it's a matinee at 2 o'clock p.m. This is at the Valentine Theatre in the Studio A Theater, that is the Black Box Theater there. You can get more information at valentinetheatre.com. That's theater spelled T-R-E at the end. Or you can call them up, 419-242-2787. Music now by Burton Beerman here on FM 91. Music by Burton Beerman, composed for the upcoming production of An Iliad, a modern retelling of Homer's epic poem about the Trojan War. And that's music that features Burton Beerman performing on 3 different flutes, obviously digitally manipulated. Quite a trip in that music there. Can you put it in context for us, what's going on with the stage action while that sort of music is playing?
I'll try to answer that one. An Iliad attempts to bridge the gap of the 3 millennia by using the original poem to illuminate things that are happening in our world today. And this piece of music, I think, is a perfect example of the way Burton taps into that message of the play. It has sounds of ancient primitive instruments, but it moves into very contemporary, very modern digital kinds of sounds. An Iliad, to speak more about the play itself, the message of An Iliad is that we are addicted to rage as individuals, as a culture, as a society, as humanity. It's kind of at our core. And in fact, at one point in the play, the storyteller, the part that I'm playing, actually lists, since the Trojan War, 144 conflicts or wars. Mm-hmm. It's a staggering list to listen to. It's actually just a portion of the conflicts and wars that have actually happened during that millennia. But it points out, it illuminates that right throughout history, we are experiencing those very same things that the Trojans and the Greeks were experiencing at the time that Homer wrote the Iliad. We use the multimedia as a way, and that is, in our case, music, live music, recorded music, slides, and video. We use that as a foil or a background to the story. It's not the most, the video and the slides and whatnot are visual supports or reinforcements for what's going on. They help, one, the audience understand what was happening in the Iliad, in the actual story, by relating it to contemporary things that they may recognize or see today, or that they may have an emotional affect to. For instance, when we're talking about soldiers in the Trojan War, there may be soldiers who could be their next-door neighbors' sons and daughters.
Right.
Also, it's used to illuminate the ancient aspects of the story. You may be seeing bits of pottery or art or visual arts that you may have seen countless times, but with the story itself, you realize the kinds of motivations that the artist had for originally creating these works of art. And it becomes more real, more palpable. That's the advantage. Now, Burton and I have actually worked together since we've actually started or met each other back in the late 70s. We were both working on a Shakespeare piece, and he did the composition for it.
Okay.
And it was a very different kind of world, the composing the kind of music that Burton does then that it is now. But we've also worked on some other pieces. But this is the first time that we've ever actually been able to be on stage together.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this is that the story itself and my telling of it affects him and his playing, more importantly, affects the way that I'm telling it. So it's very live, very immediate, and very intimate, very personal kind of thing that's happening on stage. It's very different for me as an actor to be working with a musician in this, right? I mean, you work on musicals all the time, right?
Yeah.
And you follow along, or you sing your song and an orchestra is playing on as accompaniment for you. It's all set down to a particular meter and a particular beat. You know what's happening and when it's happening. This is different. The recorded aspects are obviously always the same, but the parts that he's playing live are direct communication between the two of us live at that time on stage, and it happens once, and it's different the next time we do it.
Well, it's interesting also in the sense that, you've drawn him into your world of the theater.
I have.
On the stage. So he is acting a role, acting a part. But as a musician also and a creative personality, the collaboration between you two is a little bit like improv, what you're describing. He's using a flute for his words, right? So it seems to me there has to be some kind of give and take between the two of you on stage. Would you agree with that, Burton?
Yes, very definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting. Very interesting concept to begin with. I'm curious, did you design, Paul, the multimedia elements, the visual elements? Were those things that you did, or do you have other people collaborating with you on that?
I have had my partner, Richard Fortner. He has actually collaborated with me on the multimedia, as well as Burton, and Burton's wife Celeste has actually helped us some. I came up with the idea of it, but the idea is certainly not original. I mean, Burton and I worked on a piece that he composed, a techno video opera many years ago that used multimedia and whatnot. So it's not new. The An Iliad lends itself to different conceptualizations. I mean, I've seen the wounded soldier who is the storyteller. Mm-hmm. I've seen a rock and roll version. I've seen a lone storyteller on a very elaborate stage that's made to look like Greek ruins. I mean, a lot of money spent on a stage like that. And I've seen it as a lone storyteller like the original, Dennis O'Hare did it. He was the author, and he played the role originally. Like he did it on a just bare stage, just empty stage. And any of those conceptualizations are great, and they work because they show different aspects of the play. They bring out different things for the audience. But in this case, because we had worked on multimedia before, and because I like the way the multimedia reinforces the story for us and makes it very personal, I decided to go with it. This play also, by the way, I should probably point out, is a reading. Mm-hmm. So I'm on stage with the actual storybook, and I'm reading to the audience. And one of the things that I love about Reader's Theater is that it's very immediate for the audience. There's nothing. The audience, because in their mind's eye, can create a much more muscular, poignant, visceral image of what's going on in the story than we could ever hope to construct on stage theatrically. The multimedia just helps to inspire their own
kindle
creativity.
The fire,
A little, as it were.
Yeah. Spark the match. You mentioned Dennis O'Hare, who is the author of the actual one-act play that you're doing.
He and Lisa Peterson. Yeah.
Okay. How did you find this work? How did you come across it?
Actually, I did a reading of it for one night a year ago for Actors Collaborative of Toledo.
Okay.
And they had actually asked me to do it. So it was handed to me. Yeah. And I said, I like this a lot. I want to do it again.
Nice. Yeah, well, I imagine it is quite a tour de force for any actor, to have to take on that role of the storyteller and make those characters come alive. You talk about how, the audience brings their own imagination to it, but you have the role, you're holding it in your hands, as it were. Mm-hmm. And so that must be a challenge to create that on stage.
Well, it is. Fortunately, the story itself, like I said before, it's a really good story. Yeah. So in that respect, I don't have to do a lot of work. The work itself is probably just the physical requirements of being up there telling a story. Yeah. Just me for that length of time. So, but as you can tell, I like to talk anyway. So it
you and I both.
It works for me.
Yeah. Burton Beerman here has the best seat in the house, watching you on the stage.
And that's like
being on the stage with you.
Yeah. And that's like
Paul is so amazing during this. His range of character and I get so enthralled watching it, I almost forget to play in the rehearsals sometimes. So you're really missing something if you don't come out and see this gentleman.
I'm speaking with actor Paul Causman, Burton Beerman, also here, the composer. These two gentlemen are performing An Iliad, which is a modern retelling of Homer's epic poem about the Trojan War. It's happening at the Valentine Theatre in the Intimate Studio A. That's Friday, April 7th at 8 o'clock p.m., Saturday, April 8th at 8 o'clock p.m., and Sunday, April 9th at 2 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon. More information and tickets at valentinetheatre.com. That's theater, T-R-E, and 419-242-2787 is the box office phone number. I want to hear a little more music now, Burton. What else did you bring with you to share with us today?
We have some music that Paul said he wanted something that did not have the drum-like sounds in it, that he wanted something that was more electronic, at the same time somewhat ethereal and not sort of pop, hip-hop or something.
Right. Does this have flutes in it or no?
It does have, but I didn't want it to sound really electronic while it is electronic. I took some remixes of some of my chamber music and worked it in, and then had voices sort of ghost-like grow out of those to give it a human quality. Okay. So it doesn't really sound machine-like or anything. But
and so how does this music fit into the context of the production itself? Where does it happen in the play?
I had asked for a piece that would introduce the character of Hermes. And among the Greek gods, probably can't think of anybody who was better at mischief than Hermes. And Hermes is introduced at a time in the play where he leads Priam, the king of Troy, through the Greek battlements into Achilles' tent to beg for the return of his dead son's body, Hector's body. And so when Hermes arrives to help Priam get through what would be, terrible consequences to him personally, you don't really know what Hermes has in mind. And I asked for a piece that would kind of throw us off balance, that would underscore that aspect of the script, that would make us feel a little bit like we don't know what to expect next. And I think Burton delivered it in spades, did an excellent job.
That is some of the music by Burton Beerman, created to accompany An Iliad, which is a one-man play based on Homer's epic poem. That's at the Valentine Theatre in Studio A. Next weekend, Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock p.m. and Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock p.m. I'm talking with Paul Causman and Burton Beerman. Now, Paul, you've told me that this is a great story. Yes. And when we originally spoke about coming on and talking about it, you volunteered to do a little reading for us.
Sure.
So we're going to set it up. You're going to read a little excerpt for us from the play, but I want Burton to perhaps set it up for us, because you've seen him do this. Obviously.
Yes, quite a few times.
You're right there on the performance space with him.
Can't get away.
Right. So what are we going to hear? He means that in the best way possible, Paul. I'm sure. Guess, yeah. It's a compliment. He was smiling, I should say, when he said it. Burton, maybe you can set this up for
us. Yes, and actually this is a spot towards the beginning of the play that always brings me into it, because I always thought of Troy as these gates, stone gates that you can't see into, and the big wooden horse. But he actually takes us through the poetry, walking in a very live way, describing people all around him and what they're doing, and it's a real vibrant, living city.
This is Paul Causman giving us a little sample here, a little preview of An Iliad, which is happening at the Valentine Theatre next weekend here on FM 91. Paul, take it away.
I wish I could show you a photograph of Troy, but here is what it was like. Walk through the Scaean gates, and the first thing you'll see is a great plaza. A great plaza with a fountain. There's water everywhere. Little waterfalls, little pools. Every house has its own pool, and you hear the sound of water flowing all the time. And the water is a form of music. And that music mingles with real music, flutes, lyres, singing. And then as you walk through, you begin to see how every house is both private and public. So every house has a private area, and yet it spills into a common area. So as you're walking through the city of Troy, you see everybody, and everybody sees you. They'll often have events. They like to have their concerts. They have public meetings. They have performances of all kinds, and there's a great sense of civic duty. So they get together to discuss things like, what do we do with that fig tree that's dying? How do we save the fig tree? And they have a committee to talk about the fig tree. And of course, respect for the family, the royal family, Priam and his sons. They've actually brought Troy peace. They've actually fought off invasions. They've actually given them a life that's stable. So what you feel when you walk into Troy is a great sense of calm and a great sense of serenity. This is before the war, of course.
Paul Causman giving us a sample there of An Iliad. Paul, I'm just going to turn over my show to you after this.
No, I wish I had your voice.
Well, we can have mutual voice envy going on here. Paul Causman is performing the role, I guess, of the narrator, the storyteller, right? Perhaps you're Homer, perhaps you're all these different characters in An Iliad, which tells the story of the Trojan War, or the very end of the Trojan War. Really.
Right. It's a sliver of the Trojan War.
a little sliver of Homerian epic poetry on the stage here. It's happening at the Valentine Theatre in Studio A. That's their black box theater. Friday, April 7th at 8 o'clock p.m., Saturday, April 8th at 8 o'clock p.m., and Sunday, April 9th at 2 o'clock p.m. More information at valentinetheatre.com. That's theater with a T-R-E spelling at the end there. And you can call the box office, 419-242-2787. I want to thank both of you for coming in, Paul Causman and Burton Beerman.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the performances. Best of luck. Maybe you can throw a little bah humbug in there somewhere. And give people a taste.
Humbug. You won't have to hear that during this particular production.
People a taste of Scrooge. Or maybe, if next time you reprise Scrooge at the Toledo Rep, you can throw a little Homer.
Throw a little Iliad in there. I hadn't thought of that. But
he is taken to quoting, epic poetry. I'm sure we can find
genius.
A Dickensian take on the Iliad, right?
Absolutely, why not?
Yes. Decrease the surplus population. Send them to the front.
Send them to the front lines. Well, oh my gosh, you're a genius. I don't know if the director will approve, but that's minor consideration.
Once you get on the stage, the director's out of the picture.
That's right. That's how it works. I'm sorry, Debbie. Debbie's the director. She's wonderful. I would never do that to you.
Okay. Well, Paul and Burton, thank you so much for coming in today here on FM 91.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.